Going on, Bills Mafia? What's going on? Happy Victory Sunday. I know it's Sunday. I have no idea what day of the week is anymore because half of our games aren't even Sundays. Welcome aboard to the Buffalo Rumblings Postgame Call-in show. I am your host, Thomas DeLaus. We are here after a 20 to 12, I'm sorry, 20 to 13, 20 to 12 victory over the New York Jets. Our Buffalo Bills moved to 10-3 on the season. Man, what a game. What a game that was. Not exactly the game that I think anybody would necessarily want to see happen. That was I would say a pretty ugly game. That was definitely a pretty ugly game. Josh Allen finished significantly worse than Mike White. Josh Allen's stat line finished 16 for 27, 147 and a touchdown. Comparison to Mike White, who went 27 for 44 for 268. Sounds more like the Josh Allen stat line than the other way around. But hey, the one thing I will say is that you know what? Not every game's going to be pretty, and it doesn't matter how you win them. It just matters if you do. That's the big thing right now when it comes to Buffalo Bills football, right? A lot of these games aren't the prettiest, but what I will tell you is, at the end of the day, as long as you're winning, that's all they care about, and that's where we are right now. That's the big point in this is that we're 10-3, heading into the most important point in this season. Let's run through the stats right now, breaking up this the game today. We'll break down everything that happened in today's game, as well as taking some of your calls. And if you guys want to jump into the conversation, feel free. Feel free to call right in. You don't have to put yourself on camera if you just want to say what you got to say. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're feeling. What's your initial reaction? What's your initial reaction on today's show? Because I know I'm sure some of you probably aren't 100% sold as to today's game. But first things first, what I want to say is this show, the Buffalo Rumblings postgame show, is presented by Picasso's Pizza. Treat yourself to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's, we are Buffalo Pizza, shipping local and nationwide. Order online at picassospizza.net. Now, let's get right into the stats. As I said, Josh Allen, 16 for 27, 147, and a touchdown, sacked 3 times, 17 yards. Josh Allen ended up the leading rusher in today's game, 10 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown. Leading receiver in the game was 4 receptions, 41 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think this is probably the most very suspect game for Stephon Diggs. I don't want to say suspect, but a game that he probably just felt like wasn't up to snuff for him. 3 catches, 37 yards. So, the big thing and the big story today's game was the weather, right? We saw that the weather played a massive role in today's game. Massive. And I said this in the halftime show. At what point do we have to start, really kind of looking into this and saying, it's a big issue. The weather's a big issue. We keep running into this week after week after week when it comes to these type of games where we keep sitting there and saying, oh, well, Buffalo weather, blue collar. It's the way our football is supposed to be played. I just don't feel that way anymore. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think this isn't the 70s. This isn't the 80s when football was played like that. You have a quarterback like Josh Allen who thrives on an air raid offense. It's hard to have an air raid offense when the weather is as bad as it was today. Now, mind you, you say that, but then Mike White had a pretty fantastic day passing, 27 for 44, 268, which I gotta say, and I know a lot of people did, gotta give a lot of props. A lot of props to Mike White, man. That guy took a licking. Guy had his ass handed to him today's game, and he kept going all the way to the very, very end. Very, very end. He played very, very well. Super impressed by Mike White. Is he the future? Potentially. We'll see. Now let's go over the Jets stat line real quick. Zonovan Bam Knight, 17 carries, 71 yards, and a touchdown. I'll tell you, at halftime, I said he wasn't that impressive. He turned it on in the second half, man. He looked really good in the second half. Garrett Wilson continues to impress, 6 for 78. Elijah Moore, 6 for 60. And then the numbers just kind of drop off. Denzel Mims, 3 for 35. Tyler Conklin, 5 for 28. Overall, the Bills just had a so-so game. A game that I think a lot of these guys would prefer to really have back. One player that I think all of us can agree that has been absolutely on point every game is Tyler Bass. Tyler Bass has become probably the most important piece on this team. And I mean that in a very in a very underwhelming type of way, where Tyler Bass is always He's always doing exactly what you expect him to do. Um, the amount of points that he has on the season, obviously he's leading the team in points, but he has been so impactful for this team. So impactful. You've seen him make every kick that you need him to make in the biggest moments, and that was the difference today. That was a big, big day. Jessica, you're right. Groot was fantastic. Greg Rousseau had a big, big day. He had that sack early in the game. He had the tipped pass, and he was really kind of all over the place. Made Mike White's job significantly more difficult. Overall, I think the game in and of itself was incredibly difficult. The one thing I want to talk about is some of these late game decisions. Let's kind of break down the last two series for the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills had the opportunity to absolutely take control of this game, and it would have been done and over. There would have been no need for the onside kick from the Jets. It would have been signed, sealed, delivered. But we got to talk about the really questionable play calling there. The lack of being able to get a first down when you really need to get a first down to close out that game. Because here's the thing. Yeah, you beat them. You beat the Jets, right? But we're not talking the Chiefs. We're not talking the 49ers, you know. We're not talking the Eagles. We're not talking the Cowboys, right? Well, the Cowboys really haven't had a great day. You're not going to have opportunities like this where you score 20 points. The other team is not going to be this deficient. Now, mind you, the Bills defense was fantastic today. I'm not gonna not give credit where it's due. The defense was fantastic. Matt Milano led the defense with 9 total tackles and a tackle for loss. But this is not the type of game that you can go into week in and week out and expect to win these type of games. You're not going to have a team or every team you face not be able to score like they were able to today. So that's something that has to change. You have to see better play calling when it comes to these moments. Uh, the drops are huge. I mean, you saw multiple times. Dawson Knox dropped multiple passes today. Isaiah McKenzie, like I said, in half, and I thought he was, maybe after the first couple drives, he was really struggling, and then he, had that one drive at the end of the half where he kind of picked it up. Isaiah McKenzie is a huge issue, and the fact that we continue to give him the ball over, Khalil Shakir, to me does not make sense. To me, it just seems like a very miscalculated decision. And I'll be honest with you, and maybe I'm being a little blunt. I think the face of the franchise, fun loving stuff, until you're producing on a very consistent week in, week out basis, I don't want to see that shit. I'm sorry for my language. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see this. He's funny, goofy, whatever personality stuff. Like, it's great that he has all that stuff. But if you're not delivering on the back end, I don't want to see all that. And more often than not, Isaiah McKenzie to this point from preseason has been an absolute disappointment. Massive disappointment. We went into training camp, and I'll be honest with you, I was sitting with Joe Miller sometimes, Uber Hansen, a bunch of different people, right? And you sat there, you watched him, and you're like, man, McKenzie, he's got that job locked down. No questions asked. No questions asked. He was significantly better than Crowder. He was significantly better than Shakir. When the lights turned on and they were at their brightest, he just hasn't been anything really. McKenzie's been a question mark for this team. And the problem is, last year you could rely, and really the last couple of years, you could rely on somebody like Cole Beasley. That was that safety valve for Josh Allen. We don't have that. It's a big issue. Big, big issue. Because if Josh doesn't have that guy he feels comfortable to where he can turn and throw it to the sticks, if he needs a 7-yard out, he's got it. He doesn't have that with Isaiah McKenzie. And more often than not, Isaiah McKenzie is just dropping it. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. He's not providing much of anything at this point. And that's a big issue. Here's to hoping and praying that Jamison Crowder can get back very, very soon, because I'll tell you, I think we are sorely missing what he can add to this team. And I think that that's been a big, big, big issue. Yeah. Our check down game is absolutely non-existent at this point. Absolutely. When you've got an offense that's struggling, right? And you're struggling to find your identity at this point, because that's really what the Bills are doing. The Bills are just struggling in every facet. I mean, They had flashes. They had that drive at the end of the first half, and that was an unbelievable drive. A lot of it was predicated on Josh. But when you're struggling in which you're not being able to get the ball moving, and a lot of times you really need to get the ball moving and just get into rhythm, like I've said many times before, my show, this show, other shows, a lot of Josh Allen's success is predicated on rhythm. And you even saw, I just want to pause real quick. Can we, for the love of all that's holy, stop doing that stupid in-game interview with Sean McDermott? Like, for whatever reason, why and whoever thought that was a fantastic idea. One, aside from just leaving the guy alone, like why we have to talk to Sean McDermott for 2 questions in the middle of the game. Like, first off, he's going to give you the most vanilla, generic, just auto-generated PR answers that you could possibly ever have. But aside from that, he even said, we're not in rhythm. That tells you everything you need to know. If Josh isn't in rhythm, the offense is gone. Purely. And as much as we've gotten some, a little bit more of the running game going, which I'd like to see, we had in totality, well, actually, really, I maybe not. Maybe not. Devin Singletary ran the ball 8 times and Cook ran it 4. Maybe we didn't. Josh did. Josh ran it 10 times. He ran it quite a bit today. But if you're not running in any type of rhythm, the offense is gone. And like, Father Charge said, without that check down game, without the ability to have a slot receiver there for Josh to feel most comfortable, where he can get that ball out quick and he knows he has somebody there, you really have nothing, right? You have no ability for him to feel at his most comfortable. In regards to what you're saying, Steven, I'm not sure. Last game they used James Cook quite a bit when it came down to check down passes. And it just didn't seem like I thought it was a great option. It seemed like it was working incredibly well. James Cook is a very good receiving back, got a ton of speed. He's super elusive. And it added just another element, another wrinkle to the offense that, quite frankly, in a game like today, you might have needed. I think the only thing that they might have said, and the reason they might not have used it, was honestly, CJ Mosley is an unbelievably underrated middle linebacker. And my guess is they just thought that utilization of Cook in the middle of the field was just not going to, it wasn't going to go well with CJ Mosley sitting there. And I'll be honest with you, the Jets defense, albeit without Quinnen Williams there, is still very, very good. And I'll give Sauce Gardner, I said it this week, and I'll be honest with you, I talked a lot of trash. I got to give Sauce Gardner some credit, man. Sauce Gardner looked good. It wasn't as grabby this week as, people have said. He looked really talented. Had some really, really nice reads on balls. That one play where he caught up to gosh, who was it? I can't even remember who was in the end zone. There was a touchdown and Sauce Gardner saved it. Needless to say, it was one of those moments that Sauce Gardner really stepped up large. And that's a big thing that Sauce Gardner's been able to do. And like I said, the defense played very, very well, stepped in, stepped up, and they made it difficult on the Bills. But just like you said, it is one of those things that needs to get better. In regards to Cole Beasley. So here's the thing with Cole Beasley, and I've said this. First off, to be able to get Cole Beasley would have to unretire, and presently the Tampa Bay Buccaneers own his rights. So the only way that we would be able to get Cole Beasley is if, one, he unretired from being retired, the Buccaneers then released him, or for whatever reason, the Bills felt it, and they can't even trade because the trade deadline's gone. They would just have to, for some reason, come to some agreement with the Buccaneers under the table to say, hey, we want him. We need you to release him. I'm sure there's some behind the doors closed deals that happen outside of that. That's the only way that can happen because presently, right now, he is under contract with the Buccaneers, even though he retired. So that's why that, as much as I think Cole Beasley could potentially be an asset, albeit his speed is just not what it used to be, it's possible. I think it's one of those things that you've seen the passing offense just unfortunately just isn't really. I mean, Josh Allen passed for 147 yards today. It's just not good. It's not good. Now, mind you, you would think we have lost, right? We won 20-12. But here's the thing, 20-12, no matter what, in that weather though, you know, you still have to complete these passes. And now, mind you, there was probably 5 or 6 of those that were drops, right? So let's just say each one of them was 10 yards. Every one of those catches was 10 yards, and there's 5 of them. He's 21 for 27 for 207 yards. Looks a little bit better, a little bit more respectable per se. So I guess we'll give him his flowers there, where it was probably not on Josh completely. Um, and I don't think that it was a bad game by Josh. I think a lot of it was just bad play calling, to be completely frank with you. But overall, it just the game style in itself was just not the best, to say the least. Another thing that I want to talk about, we got I talked about this earlier. Spencer Brown's regression has been night and day, night and day, and it's one of those things that I just think that we can't risk Josh getting injured any bit more than he already is. So they've got to do something. And the big thing with this offseason was Aaron Kromer coming in and providing that coaching, providing that tutelage to being able to coach these guys up. So is it that he's not getting it? He's regressing, or is he still injured from that lower lumbar injury that he has had all the way since college? 'Cause if that's the situation, then that needs to be addressed. And here's to hoping that David Quessenberry can get back too, because that's a massive, massive loss. Overall, this team in and of itself is supremely talented. I think the big issue is in totality, they just aren't getting a lot out of their offensive passing game. I mean, the big thing for me, and I said this and I tweeted it out, for anybody that sat there and said that we don't need Odell Beckham, let's talk about it. You don't think we need Odell Beckham now? Because based on what I'm seeing, I just don't think the passing game is exactly what it should be, right? You're seeing a lot of massively dropped balls, massive, massive plays where guys are just routine catches. I mean, you saw Singletary drop, Isaiah McKenzie, multiple drops, Gabe Davis, drop, Knox, multiple drops. It just can't keep happening. It can't. Because the other part about the drops is that it literally stalls out the offense. They have that phrase, right? You kept hearing it, ahead of the sticks. Get ahead of the sticks. And it's instead of being, 3rd and 9, it's third and manageable, 3rd and 3. You know, there's just a lot of stuff that I think needs to be cleaned up. Now, again, let's sit there and say, here's the thing. Right now, the Bills are 10-3. And if we go ahead and let's bring up Ian, if you want to put the standings, the NFL standings on there. Let's take a look at what's going on right now for the Buffalo Bills in regards to the standings. And even more so, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring up the NFL playoff simulator. Let's see. Playoff machine. Let's go. We'll go ahead and bring this in here. Give me 1 second, folks. I'm going to get this thing up here and take a look and see. Okay. This is based on wins and losses and how everything looks. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we could talk about this in regards to how things are looking and based on what we think, really could be going on right now going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this up here. So if we look at the Buffalo Bills, right, we're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills. Bills obviously just won. And then if they keep going forward, right, and they win next week, you can obviously make it super easy. But if you have any massive losses in the middle here, right? Like let's say a Bengals, and then you have other teams come in and win those big matchups. Like let's say the Bengals win out right here. Bills drop to that number 2 seed. And potentially, depending on how the Jets season ends up, which if let's say they continue and they play the Giant or the Lions and let's say they beat the Seahawks, Mike White has another big game, and then they finish up with the Dolphins, right? and they win against the Dolphins, or let's say lose for the sake of the conversation, we could end up playing the New York Jets again at the end of the season as that number 2 seed. So there's a lot of stuff that could happen in the end of the season right now that really becomes impactful. And the problem is, the big issue is that you can't keep doing these mistakes over and over again. You can't have games like today and expect to win week in, week out. Jerry Ostrowski said it a few weeks back. The NFL is an incredibly difficult league to win games in. Point blank, period. It's just difficult. It's not easy to win games in the NFL. And when you're playing against teams at the end of the season, like look at what they did. Mike White, for example. Mike White played an unbelievable game today. And he gutted it out. Any other person would not have come out of that locker room at that point. At all. Mike White was barely standing at that end of the game. He could barely breathe. When he was making play calls, he could barely talk. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about this point in the season, right? These teams are playing for their lives. And legitimately, and for some of their cases, playing for their careers. Mike White is playing for absolutely the possibility of being the starting quarterback for the New York Jets in 2023. So the big thing that we have to talk about here is what the Bills need to do going forward. And I want to hear from some of you guys in the comments. If you guys want to call in, feel free to hop on in and tell me what you guys think the Bills need to do going forward. But I want to talk about what the Bills need to do going forward to protect that number 1 seed. Because as of this point, the Bills still own it. The Bills are still the number 1 seed. Because right now, at 10-3, the Bills control their destiny. With 4 weeks left in the season, Bills play at home against the Dolphins, at the Bears, at the Bengals, back home against the Patriots. This is one of those moments where the Bills just have to continue. They have to continue playing their best ball. In the moments where you need big time plays, we can't have these dropped passes anymore. We need guys like Isaiah McKenzie to step up, right? But let's go back to all side of that. And let's talk about some positives about the game. Let's talk about some moments that guys were stepping up big. First things first, let's talk about Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer has been unbelievable this season. Unbelievable. As of this point in the NFL season, I'm not sure how any Bills fan at this point could sit there and say that we can't pay Jordan Poyer. Like, as of this point, Jordan Poyer is the most impactful player on that defense. No questions asked. The Bills have yet to lose a game with Jordan Poyer in the lineup. Jordan Poyer has been unbelievably talented for the Bills. Oh, look at this. We got a special guest appearance, ladies and gentlemen. The host of the Bruce Exclusive, as well as the co-host of the Food for Thought podcast alongside Nate Geary. Yeah, Mr. Bruce Nolan in the house. Bruce, what's going on, my man?
Thomas, it's a party all the time, man. Just disco balls and dancers the whole time. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and you sound fantastic.
I sound a lot better, don't I? It's starting to, all it takes is 7 weeks, and all of a sudden your voice starts to come back. It's amazing. Time heals all wounds.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Bruce, let's hear it. Tell the fans, tell everybody watching Buffalo Rumblings right now, what do you think about today's game?
A win is a win, for sure. But this same effort, if replicated against better teams, clearly won't cut it, right? I think that there are some meaningful concerns about the game plan, about Ken Dorsey. I think these things still start to come around. And where was the pre-snap motion? Where was the play action? Where are the easy buttons for Josh Allen? And so they become even more important when your quarterback is struggling. And they become even more important when your quarterback is, still dealing with a lingering elbow injury in rain. Like, if ever there was a time, for naked play action boots with high-low concepts with a tight end motioning across the formation, today is that day, right? Play action from under center. Like, if ever there was a time for the easy buttons, Like, where's Gary Kubiak when you need him, right? Just literally nothing but the easy buttons all day long, right? Let's Matt Schaub this crap. If ever there was a time, this is the time. And I apologize for my camera not working. My dog actually ate it this week. So, I had every intention of coming on here, turning it on and introducing everyone to myself and my glorious visage. But unfortunately, that was not meant to be.
It wasn't a Jets week thing.
No, not so much.
No. Bruce, so let's talk about today's game in and of itself. Kind of a couple things that I think are pressing needs. At this point, we've seen that Spencer Brown has continued what I would believe is a regression. What do you think needs to be done? Because obviously you've seen when he is regressing, the utilization of Dawson Knox has basically become non-existent, except for today for some reason. What do they need to do to whether it's fix the issue, cover it up, band-aid the issue to continue? Because obviously when you're playing better teams with better edge defenders, he's going to get eaten alive.
There isn't a great answer to this because on the one hand, you say, well, let's put in Quessenberry. Quessenberry's also banged up, right? And is trying to come back from an injury. And you saw him trying to fight and gut it out at left tackle because the other option, which is Bobby Hart, is not a good option either. Well, then you have a third option. The third option is you got to just make sure that you have Singletary in there for more snaps so you can chip because James Cook is not a good blocker. We saw that multiple times this year. So it's one of those scenarios where you have multiple options and none of them is good. And that's the thing that's frustrating because Quessenberry, you go, okay, he's hurt, right? Bobby Hart, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see Bobby Hart starting at right tackle. Then you have, the idea that you want to keep in Singletary because he's a better blocker than James Cook. But at the same time, you also want to have some dynamism to your running back room. So you don't love that option either. So I think you just got to play it out. And I don't really like saying that, but
right.
It's not because I think Spencer Brown is doing great. That's not it. I think we can agree that we've seen regression from him. Now, I think that he performed probably better than we would have expected last year as a rookie, considering he had not played essentially at all the previous year. And he's an extremely raw right tackle who's a freak athlete from, Northern Iowa. So I think that we kind of got a little spoiled to the fact that he might have been a longer term project, but at the same time, now you're, 2/3 of the way through year 2. The other issue is that Spencer Brown missed a lot of the offseason. And so a lot of the opportunity you have to work on your craft and to take that next jump has to be now done on the fly. So I think you kind of got to stick it out, but it's not because I think Spencer Brown's doing great. It's because I don't like any of the alternatives. So it's not even a good versus better. It's a bad versus worse.
Sorry, I muted myself because I was also, you literally stopped talking at the worst possible time. But it's okay. We're going to roll with this because it's live TV or not at TV or whatever it is. Needless to say, Bruce, I gotta ask, in regards to you being a tape junkie, I don't know if it's tape because there's no such thing as tape anymore. What have you seen as the reason why Shakir has not gotten more or afforded more of an opportunity? Is it his lack of understanding? Does he not have a full route tree? Does the team or Josh or Dorsey not feel comfortable with him? Have you noticed anything that's hinged on why McKenzie, who to this point, I would say, you would say, most would say, has been a letdown? What exactly is the answer, if there is any?
Khalil Shakir has not been on the field for a meaningful enough amount of time to be able to say that there's sample size to draw on a conclusion, which means the only conclusion I can draw is that there's something in practice, right? Where he's not understanding the assignments. He's not, where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there, things like that, because he hasn't gotten enough snaps over the course of the year where you can play him out and go, okay, I have a good feel for Khalil Shakir. This past week, one of the big discussions was Kaiir Elam. And so I went back and watched Kaiir Elam's snaps against the Lions, and I had previously watched him before, but there's sample size on Kaiir Elam where you have a good feel for him.
Right.
There isn't a sample size like that for Khalil Shakir. And that's the thing that makes it tricky, is because I can go back and I can watch Khalil Shakir, but whatever it is, whatever conclusion is that I come to is not going to be solid enough because there isn't enough of it. And that's the thing that always really is tricky, because you want to come up with a why. You want to come up with a hard and fast conclusion. And you know you can, but it's not going to carry as much weight when you have a player who has only played a little bit percent of the snaps. I mean, the biggest percentage of snaps that Khalil Shakir had gotten all year long was against Pittsburgh. And he played well against Pittsburgh. 3 catches, 75 yards. But after that, it was 21, 29, 15, 20, 25, 44, 21. Like this is not a lot of snaps to go around. This is, 16 snaps, 15 snaps, 9 snaps, 15 snaps. And then if you really want to get specific, you could do his targets. But he has a total of 16 targets on the entire year, and 5 of them came against Pittsburgh. So it's tricky. It really is. It's tricky with Khalil Shakir. And I like Khalil Shakir. I was thrilled when they drafted him. As far as a 5th round pick goes, absolutely. Let's go on. But I know that's an I don't know answer, and I know that's a terrible answer, but it's the most intellectually honest of the I don't know answers I can give you, which is what I can go back and watch Khalil Shakir, and I probably will, but I'm going to have to put an asterisk by every single observation going small sample size, small sample size, small sample size when I do.
Right. And the one thing for Roy that I want to touch on here is he's a 5th round pick, shouldn't have too many expectations for him anyway. The problem with that is we have no wide receivers. Once you get past Diggs and Davis and McKenzie, that's it. That's where that ends. And McKenzie, the problem has been such a letdown that once you get past Diggs and Davis, it's a huge drop off. And then what's even further is Davis has been a massive letdown. So once you get past Diggs, it's a huge cliff. So the problem is, yes, in a vacuum, he is a 5th round pick and we shouldn't worry. But the problem with that in and of itself is we haven't afforded ourselves the luxury of saying it's a 5th round pick. We have time to let him develop. It's not like the Chiefs, who have 19 receivers, right? Where Sky Moore can slowly kind of get into it. And I don't use Knox as a wide receiver. A pass catcher, I guess. Knox is a pass catcher. But the problem is Knox has not even been. Today is the first game where he had, I think, 7? He had 7 targets, which I believe might be season high. I believe this was the highest catches he's had in like 5 weeks. Because for the most part, between Quessenberry and Spencer Brown, they've been injured back and forth. So Knox has literally had to set and be protection for that specific case. So, and in and of itself, I think that there's got to be something more. Like, I think you're right, Bruce. I think it's got to be something in practice, or that Josh just doesn't feel comfortable. Because at the end of the day, Josh has no other options. So if at all, you would think that with limited options, he'd use what he does have.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's almost like the scenario you and I were talking about with right tackles, where it's
Right.
okay. I understand that Khalil Shakir is a 5th round pick. I understand that, but also, Isaiah McKenzie was a late round pick too. So it's not like we can't have players who can make some semblance of an impact. But the relying on Isaiah McKenzie is the issue. Isaiah McKenzie is not a problem. The issue is when you have to rely on him, when you were forced into relying on him. That's when you get the problems. If you were allowed to, Isaiah McKenzie is a maraschino cherry. That's what he is. Does anybody make a dish out of maraschino cherries? No, nobody does that.
I'm sure somebody does, but they're very strange.
Right? Those people don't. The entire purpose of having a maraschino cherry is as a garnish. That's the point, right? Isaiah McKenzie is parsley. That's what he is. You're supposed to put it on top of something that's already there. You're not supposed to build your dish out of it. And the problem is you're being forced, because you have nothing else in your fridge, to build a dish out of parsley. And nobody wants to do that.
Right. And that's the problem, is he's not a problem, but he's also not a solution. So that's the issue in and of itself, is we have become too reliant. And I think the problem is you went from Cole Beasley and expected, oh, well, we can find somebody and fill them in and you'll be fine. But I don't think they anticipated that the drop from Beasley would be massive to the next level. Whereas Beasley was such an impactful piece to this offense. And like I was mentioning earlier, Bruce, before you came on, that without Beasley, Josh has no support valve. He has nobody that he can turn to and say, I know he's going to be right there at the 7 yards, and I have that catch literally signed, sealed, delivered. He doesn't have that anymore. And the problem is Beasley, or I mean, excuse me, McKenzie just doesn't have it in him. He's just, I mean, I, Bruce, I swear to God, my wife is super pregnant, as I've told a million people now. I literally might have scared her to death when McKenzie dropped that pass for the first down that would have gotten that drive really rolling, because you're just sitting there mind numbed over a guy that this team has PR built as like a face of the franchise who can't get out of his own way ever. He just can't do it.
The scope of the things that you can count on McKenzie for is just too narrow. And the broader it is that you make it out of necessity or preference, whatever it is, the least comfortable you get. McKenzie as a jet sweep guy with gadget stuff, absolutely. McKenzie as a returner, okay, I'm getting a little bit nervous. McKenzie is a meaningful piece of the offense, okay, now I'm really nervous. Not because he can't make significant plays, he can. It's a reliability factor. It's just like having a coworker in any other job. So whether I like my coworker in a job or not isn't really relevant. It's, can I count on them to carry their weight at all times? And Isaiah McKenzie has been known as being someone who can get meaningful plays in the passing game, but also can struggle with drops at times and miscalculations and things like that. And so for me, I never blame McKenzie for this. I blame the fact that you don't have enough options, that you are being forced to rely on him.
Right. Bruce, one last thing before I let you go. Got to ask you, what are your thoughts on this weather? Obviously, I know we're not going to have a dome, but at this point, it has to be a conversation, because I know you get two very scoped, segments of people, where you have the people that absolutely love this blue collar hard hat nonsense, fits Buffalo, whatever. And then you have the other side that are sitting there just face palming over this putrid weather that has literally impacted Josh Allen games more than anything else. Where's your stance on this at this point?
For me personally, I'm a dome guy. I've always been a dome guy. And the reason I'm a dome guy is I want as little things as humanly possible impacting the purity of the game on the field. And when I say purity, what I mean is the best team wins the game. I want that to happen as often as humanly possible. And the fact of the matter is, the more external stimuli and the more external pressure you exert on the game, the less possibility of that being true. If I could turn injuries off, I would do that too, because it's the same thing. Because I want the best team to win as much as humanly possible. The problem is, this is football. That doesn't happen. The best team doesn't always win. In fact, the best team frequently doesn't win. That's the way it works. How often does the best team in the NFL win the Super Bowl? I don't think it's true very often. It just doesn't happen. It's the team that gets hot at the right time, and the team that gets some luck at the right time, and the team that gets some injuries at the right time. I want to remove as much of that as humanly possible from the game. It's the same reason why I'm in favor of sky judges and replay, because I want to eliminate all possible external stimuli that could impact the game that would take it away from the best team winning the game. It's the exact same line of thinking. 100% line of thinking is, I want a dome for the same reason that I want sky judges. I want as little interference into the nature of the best team winning the game as humanly possible. Now, it doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't matter if I want a dome. It doesn't matter if any of us want a dome. Dome's not happening. So It doesn't really matter what I say. But I haven't really gotten an opportunity to speak on it. And the reason I haven't gotten an opportunity to speak on it is because no one's ever asked me until you. And the reason I haven't brought up it on my own show is because nobody cares, right? By the time it was time to have that discussion, the decision was already made. But I think this is a great example that I think the Bills are a better team than the New York Jets. And I think that any opportunity you have to have an external force that changes the probabilities of the best team winning the game, I want to remove that.
Right. And I liked Sal Marijuana. Sal, right?
I do.
So Sal had a great tweet earlier. I'm gonna pull this up real quick. If I can get to it in time. Sale basically said to an effect that the weather it makes good teams bad and bad teams good. It takes out basically the middle of what a normal game would be, because you're looking at games where the Bills should have easily won this game. In totality, they just were the better team. Defensively, they were the better team. I mean, even Josh Allen in moments was better than Mike White. Mike White made some very nice passes, don't get me wrong, but the Bills in totality were the better team. And so here's the tweet. For all you football weather people out there, this is what happens in football weather. It equalizes the game for the underdog. The conditions are awful and both offenses have been lousy. That's what it comes down to. When you have to watch a game and you feel bad for the people at the stadium, that's when you know the game is crap. It's not an enjoyable experience. You're paying to sit in 33-degree weather because it was like just above snow. So it's 33-degree weather with a terrible product. It took how long? What did they say? 29 minutes to get a point on the board? I mean, come on. Like, this isn't 1960 anymore, where the field goal or the field goal posts are in the middle of the end zone. Like, let's have a normal football game. I know for the most part, and Bruce can agree, I'd much prefer to watch a 45-42 game over a 12-20 game because the weather was crap. I just think it's a nonsensical, and I understand nothing's going to change. Doesn't matter how many of us say it back into our faces turn blue. It doesn't matter, but in totality, it's a terrible product. Terrible product.
I agree with you, and I'm not saying that I want it to look like the Arena League, where any time an offense doesn't score, that's like an unbelievable thing. Like, wait, hold on, nobody scored? I'm not saying that. I do want some balance. I do think it's frequently unfair to the defense with the way that the rules are done, but I don't want that a defensive advantage to be because the offense can't hold the ball.
Right.
Like that's not the reason why I would like there to be some buff to the defense. It's because you can't hold the ball. So for me, I think that this stuff mattered a lot more before the invention of the forward pass. Yeah. Before the invention of the forward pass, I don't think this mattered that much at all, to be honest.
Right.
But now it does. So,
which, side note, what's the over under on the fact that that little sign that they put up where the 50-yarder is gone already?
All right. So what the over under is what? Let's go over under 4:53 p.m. Eastern time on the 11th.
Yeah.
I'm going to take over because there's too many people right now for it to, like, you can't get away like sneakily with it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go over, and it's still standing right now, but it won't be soon.
Yeah. I would have said it's probably already gone. And the only reason I said that, it was as cold as all hell this morning. And I'm sure there were people probably at that stadium sitting there since 6:30. And there's enough drunk people in that area that don't even go. The other part about it is, I think they said, and I want to see if it's true, and I'd be really intrigued to find out. I heard that there's like 150,000 people that actually tailgate every day for the Bills games, and obviously there's only 71,000 that go in. If that's in fact the case, there is zero chance that thing is still standing there unless they're going to go out every single week and replace that. So I don't know, but needless to say, Bruce, I truly appreciate you popping in and spending quite a bit of time with me. As always, guys, check out the Bruce exclusive as well as the Food for Thought podcast with Bruce and Nate Geary. Bruce, I hope you have a great Sunday, and I'm glad you're doing a lot better, brother.
Catch you later, man.
See you, buddy. Guys, obviously that was Bruce Nolan. Is probably one of the best voices in the game. And we got an ex-Buffalo Bill in the house right now, ladies and gentlemen. We got big Jerry Ostrowski joining us. Jerry, what's going on, brother?
Thomas, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
We're doing. It's been a long weekend. I'm pretty exhausted, to be honest with you, finishing up all the baby readying stuff. But how did you think today's game went? What's the former player observation on today's performance?
Well, I think today's performance was pretty lackluster if you look at the offense. Obviously, Josh Allen throws for 147 yards, 16 to 27. Big number there was 3 sacks. And, obviously the New York Jets have a good front. They play good football on defense. Quentin Williams goes out. That hurts them immensely. But, I think the Jets are a good defensive team. Now, that being said, we found a way to get things done. We had a good second half. We didn't cover. This kind of seems to be the Bills' MO right now. We're not blowing teams out. We're not, really smashing teams, so to speak. We're getting things done and going about our business. But definitely not a lot of fireworks. And you put a good defensive team on the other sideline, and you mix in a little bit of bad weather, you kind of get what you have today.
Right, which I'm sure there were times back in, when you were playing, because I mean, I feel like Buffalo just always has a bunch of these just terrible stinker weather games that
Right.
you guys had to just trudge it out. And back then, I mean, it was even less of a passing offense. I mean, you guys were more predicated on Thurman Thomas. So I'm sure those games got real just messy for a while. What do you think at this point? Because it seems to me, and like you even saw, and I mentioned this earlier, that when it came to the end of the game, when they could have closed it out, they went 3-0 and gave
Right.
the Jets another opportunity. And they just kept doing it over and over. I mean, I told my wife at one point when it was, I think it was 20-7, that was it. The game was over. The Bills won. They were going to run away with this thing. And I was confident. I mean, the Jets looked like they were on their heels. The Bills looked like they were reeling, like they were really taking it to them. And then it's almost like they step on their own toes. What do you think is the issue with the Bills offense right now? Is it play calling? Is it lack of personnel? Is it just not utilization of the run? I mean, I guess what is the big issue right now for them?
Well, I think the biggest issue today with the Bills, and they were right on the cusp of blowing this thing out, and then they go ahead and they let a punt get blocked out of the back of the end zone for a safety. Momentum totally went on to the Jets sideline at that point. The game was out of reach for the Jets at that point, as far as, they didn't have any momentum. They didn't have any energy, and they turn around. We let them block a punt. Now, next thing you know, they get a safety. We're kicking it back to them. I thought our defense was outstanding today. I thought our defense was physical. I thought our defense got after it. Obviously, there's a few holes. They seem to be picking on Dane Jackson quite a bit this game. Whatever they saw in our coverage, because we kind of played that, that umbrella coverage a little bit, keep everything in front of us. They were able to take advantage of Dane a little bit, especially on the sideline. It seemed like they were pressing him inside and then getting back outside before he could get there. So there's a little bit there to fix. We got great safeties. Poor's a great safety, but it's a little bit too far for him to come downhill to get into the play. He was getting there a little bit late as well, just because of the scheme of the Jets. But I don't know. I don't think this is a personnel problem. I think this is just it's ugly football weather problem. I mean, it's ugly football. These are games that we've won in the past. This is how you win in December in Orchard Park, New York. It's probably going to be this way again next week. I'm not trying to put excuses out there, but you also look at Josh Allen, and Josh is if he's battling this elbow injury still, this cold weather is not really great for tendon and ligament and nerve injuries. And if he's still dealing with a little bit of that, I'm sure that bothered him some as well today. But tremendous effort out of the defense. I do think it showed. We missed Jordan Phillips. We got to find some more size up the middle, so it's not just him. The Jets had some success running the football. It doesn't shock me that Phillips wasn't playing today and they had that success. So all in all, I think defensively, great game by the Bills. Offense, a C. You get the game done. You get the win. You get enough points to win. And special teams, while Bass was money on the field goals, you can't give him a passing grade when you have a blocked kick. Can't do it. And, not good by that Bills special teams.
Right. Yeah, and that's the sad part about games like today, is that you want it to, and that's a tough thing for this, right? Like, my initial reactions for the game is I'm supposed to be excited, but the tough part is you watch those games and there's so much left to be desired, because even though you're 10-3, which is fantastic. I mean, they're the best team
Right.
in the NFL right now, really, besides the Eagles, I think. But you have to sit there and kind of take a step back and realize that this is you're not going to win in the playoffs unless an entirely different Bills team decides to show up come, January.
I hear what you're
These guys are just
saying.
going to get run off.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand why we won't give the Jets any credit. And while offensively they're incredibly mediocre, okay, and they're in all kinds of upheaval. And the fact that White came back in the game and played after the 2 shots he took, especially the second hit from Milano, was unreal. I mean, you want to talk about guts. That was a big-time performance by him and showed his teammates a lot, showed them just how much he wants to be that starting quarterback in New York. But we tend to just downplay the Jets, and defensively, they're a fantastic football team. Again, our offensive line gives up 3 sacks to a quarterback that's mobile. So to me, when Josh can't get out, that just shows they've got things on lockdown. Sauce Gardner, great cornerback. Later in the game, they didn't run him over with Diggs. They kept him on his side. That was an interesting, choice by the Jets coaching staff. Mobley he's a freak. He's a hard-hitting physical linebacker. So defensively, you have to look at them and say, this is they're 7-6 now, 7-5 at the start of the game. And those 7 wins, a lot of it was hanging on that great defense they play. So I'm not that I shouldn't say I'm not alarmed. I look at where we are right now. We're starting to get a little bit healthy. We're starting to come along. We win a game in December at home the way we probably always have won them, which is ugly.
Right.
And you go from there. So you get on the next week, you get Miami at 8:15, which I don't know, should be colder than it was today. Another one of those types of games.
The weather right now is saying 27 degrees, 10 to 20 mile an hour winds with 60% chance of snow. So
really?
Yep. It'll be ugly.
Well, I guess I'll pack accordingly because I will be in the stands during that game. So anybody out there wants to give me 4 club seats or 4 suite tickets, please get a hold of me on Twitter. I'll gladly take them. But no, it's part of the experience. I think if you go to Bills games long enough, you're used to it. You understand what's up. I think the Bills will be fine. I think it will hurt Miami. I really do. But, obviously today they didn't run the ball very much. They didn't try to run the ball very much. And when they did, Singletary averaged basically 5 yards a carry, which is good. Josh and he had a bunch of called plays again. He averaged almost 5 yards a carry. And the guy who seemed to be not liking the cold weather today was Cook. James Cook did not do too much today and actually missed some blocks. And in my estimation, took a step backwards in his development today.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think, and I mentioned this earlier, that I think the usage of James Cook dropped because of Mosley. That because all last game, he was literally right in front of the defensive line, just waiting for Josh Allen, just right in the flat. Every time Josh turned, he was there for him. And I think that they just realized that with Mosley there, they weren't going to be able to do much in terms of utilizing Cook. And like you said, I think he wasn't as effective as he was last week.
Right.
And Singletary that's the one thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of downplaying on Singletary. Singletary's been incredibly impressive this season.
I agree, Thomas.
I think he's done everything that he's supposed to do. And if you even look, I think I'm going to bring up the stats real quick for the season. I think Singletary has got to be close to, if not 5 yards a carry for the entire season.
Right.
The one thing I will mention with what you were saying, he's 4.5 yards a carry, 4.5 yards a carry, which is still nothing to scoff at.
Right.
603 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not a bad season with 4 games remaining. But I will, like you were saying with the defense, the Jets defense, like I said, albeit the fact that Quentin Williams went down, is unbelievable.
Yes.
What Robert Saleh has been able to do from last year to this year is, he should be in the running for Coach of the Year. What the Jets have become from last year to this year is, especially with the quarterback just carousel between Mike White and Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco. The fact that they're even where they're at 7-6 is incredibly impressive. You put a competent quarterback with the Jets, I'll be honest with you, they might be better than the Bills.
Yeah, possibly defensively, I would say that. And you got guys. You talk about the head coach and Slot and what he's done with that defense. Well, he should be pretty good. They've been drafting pretty high for quite a while now. Quentin Williams on a contract year. He's trying to get a new contract. He doesn't want to leave New York. And again, we talked about Mobley ad nauseum, and then Sauce Gardner being what he is. So, yes, you're right. Tremendous defensive football team. Big win for the Bills. They lost to them last time. They won. They should get it done. And I don't know. I hear you. Everybody keeps talking about this this dome debate. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's part of Buffalo lore. I also think that playing in the cold weather has kind of the advantage that the Bills get has kind of maybe run its course a little bit. I think that between technology and shared information and all this stuff that we do now in sports performance, the teams aren't rolling into New York with just this mouth hanging open, wide-eyed look on their face anymore like they used to in the past because they had to play in such, bad weather. That being said, I think a big part of this really is not the choice, say the Bills organization or the state of New York is listening to the fans, so to speak, as much as it is, we're probably stretched on affording the stadium that we're building to begin with. You want to stick another extra $150 million onto the tab to put a retractable roof on it. That probably has more to do with it than actual the choice of the fans. I would think anyway.
Right. And I think it's potentially they just didn't want to price out the fans any bit more than they probably were going to.
Right.
Because at this point, they're going to price out a bunch of them. And you had a $500 million retractable roof. You're going to price out probably another third. So that being said, Jerry, any last thoughts on in today's game or the upcoming game against the Dolphins?
No, just some interesting things. I think Hines is slowly becoming a great addition to the Bills. He had 2 kick returns for 40 yards. Both of them, 121, one was 20. I think he's becoming a weapon in a return game. Has given us a pop there more than we thought he would. More in special teams than we had, in being a receiver out in the backfield. But I think that'll come in time. But we needed that pop at the receiver position. We seemed to come out of the game relatively healthy. It seemed to me that this game was pretty much in par with most of the season because, the same things we're talking about are the same things we've talked about for the last 5 weeks. Running game issues, no number 2 receiver. Should we put a roof on the stadium? So I think we're doing pretty good. I think that, the other thing that was nice to see today, Knox with 4 catches, 41 yards and a big touchdown. He answered the bell when we needed him. And we got Josh Allen through another game without re-aggravating that elbow and being relatively healthy. So onward and upward to next week. We got Dolphins coming in. 2 is beat up. We owe them 1 too. And, there's no other way we'd rather have it. We win 5, we get the number 1 seed. It's that simple. And I think this football team is primed to do it.
Right. Jerry, I appreciate you guys. Make sure you're checking out Jerry's new show, 3-Man Rush, alongside Sarah Larson and Colt Schroeder. Jerry, what time is that at?
This week will be on Wednesday night, but normally we're at 9 o'clock Eastern time on Thursdays, and then we drop it in a pod on Saturday mornings because we do get into quite a bit of college football. But we have that show as well with Sarah Larson, and then Colt's actually moved on, so we're staying with the 3-man moniker right now. We might add a third person, we might not, but we like the game. Sarah's wonderful to work with, and then also I'm kind of developing another all NFL show with another person that we might drop here somewhere down the road. So big things coming. Love Buffalo Rumblings. Love you, Thomas, and the rest of the guys. Appreciate you for letting me hang out and talk football.
Absolutely, Jerry. Appreciate you, brother. Hey, have a great Sunday, and we'll be talking soon.
You too. Later on, man. Bye.
See. Obviously, that was Jerry Ostrowski, Bills legend, fantastic guy. If you guys haven't checked out his content, he is. It's cool. The one thing, and I'm fortunate getting to interact with these guys, but I'll tell you, a lot of these, whether it's John Fino or Jerry Ostrowski, Ruben Brown does stuff with Buffalo, the Bills Mafia group. A lot of these guys, man, it's really cool to see just not only the content they put out, but just how humble and, approachable they are. They're just good people, really down to earth people. And it's great to have, Jerry and John as part of Buffalo Rumblings, providing incredible content, but even more so incredible insight. But we're going to wrap it up. Got about an hour just in here, and I'm going to go spend some time with my pregnant wife. Guys, again, this has been the Buffalo Rumblings Postgame Call-in show. Haven't had a ton of call-ins, but that's okay. I don't mind talking a little bit here and there. Guys, make sure you're checking out all the fantastic content here at the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. My show tomorrow night, the Buffalo Late Night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will announce the guests probably tomorrow at some point. But you want to talk about Ken Dorsey real quick? I'll tell you my real quick on my way out topic about Ken Dorsey. I think Ken Dorsey has done some great things. I think Ken Dorsey has done some not so great things. I think it's up for interpretation, but I also think it's up for we need to potentially just give him some time in his first year because there were people that when Brian Dable came in, there were games that people didn't believe in him, that his play calling was questionable. So let's give him some time, see how it goes. The one thing that you have to think about is there's been more injuries on the Bills team. Dable never dealt with these injuries like Dorsey's dealt with. Dable didn't have, minus his first year, an injury like this with Josh Allen. Dorsey has walked in on an unfortunate situation, unfortunately, and so he's just kind of doing what he can. The other part is, it's just you got to do what you can do with what you have. So it's a good situation for Dorsey and it's a bad situation, but I think he's done a good job at least trying to keep things afloat right now while he's figuring it out. But like I said, guys, make sure that we are checking out all the different podcasts. We actually at Buffalo Rumblings just picked up a new show, and it is the After the Snap podcast, and that's with Blake and Reed Ferguson. Obviously, Reed, the long snapper for the Buffalo Bills. Make sure to check that out. But tons of good content. Whether it's with Sarah Larson, like I said, Jerry Ostrowski, Jay Spence, Joe Miller, Colt Schroeder. I mean, there is so much content on Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. Really, really good stuff. And, I want to appreciate and thank both Jerry Ostrowski and, of course, Bruce for stopping in and having some conversations with me, saving my butt from having to talk for an hour today. That being said, guys, truly appreciate you stopping in here. The Buffalo Rumblings Postgame Call-in show. We will be back here every single time. Make sure to check the later show today. That is the Overreaction Postgame show with Joe Miller, the voice, Joe Miller. You will see him later tonight. But as always, I thank you guys. You can find me on Twitter at the Thomas DeLaus. Make sure to hit me with a follow. Love to conversate with you guys. We will see you back here at halftime on Saturday night against the Miami Dolphins in Orchard Park for that number 1 seed again. Guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I am the Thomas DeLaus. We'll see you next week. Go Bills.